You're good.
All right. Hi there, my Wonderlings, and welcome back for another special episode. I've got James Maxey back with us, and you may remember that name. He was on Welcome to Wonderland back in September, episode 35. I had a cheat here, and we talked about his book Cryptids: How We Know They're Real. And if you remember at that time, he teased that he was working on a new book, and he said it was going to be about the end of the world. And guess what? It came out. So James sent me a copy of the book, and I read it, and guys, it is so much fun. It's weird to say that the end of the world is fun, but in case you didn't catch the last episode, what I'm going to do is go ahead and introduce James Maxey. Welcome back. Tell us about yourself. Thanks for being here again.
All right. Well, happy to be here. Thank you for having me. So I've been writing for. I started publishing stories in the '90s. I've been at this a long time, mostly writing fiction, and it's only in recent years that I've been stretching and trying out the nonfiction game. And they say write what you know, so I'm not like sitting there, deciding to write a book, then going and reading 50 other things to put it together. Instead, it's me putting down the stuff I've been fascinated with since I was a kid. So I write a lot of post-apocalyptic science fiction, stories set after the end of the world. And so I've been for decades reading about various ways that the world could end. I grew up in a very fundamentalist church that believed that the end times were imminent, that the rapture was going to be happening any day. So I've got a lot of training and just expecting the world is going to come crashing down around us. And this book was just kind of my attempt to work through some of my own feelings about the dooms that face us. We definitely live in an age where we have more ways for humanity to drive itself to the brink of extinction and beyond than ever before. Everything we advance seems to bring with it some fresh doom.
Yeah. So I this is going to sound terrible. I didn't expect this book to be so fun to read.
I have it on the book, the title. It's the subtitle or the tagline is a frightening but fun look at our inevitable extinction.
Right, and it was so. Similarly to you, I enjoy a nice post-apocalyptic novel. Like there's something about it, and that grit and that get to it, that desire to survive, that's just really enticing. But I'm going to be honest, I don't give a whole lot of thought to how the world might actually end. Like in my head, it's forever away, billions. And you talk about that in here, that it's forever away. But you mentioned something in the book about how you grew up in an era where nuclear holocaust was kind of.
Oh, yeah.
So
I was born in 1964. And so, I was going to schools that had bomb shelters in the basement. I remember going into some of these bomb shelter rooms. They would get turned into storerooms for the band or something, and so you would go into the bomb shelter to get the tambourines or whatever, and there'd be all these tins of like dry biscuits with that that had a shelf life of like 50 years, and I was always like, I really want to open up one of these.
Did you open any of them?
To taste these ancient biscuits, but no, I never did. But still, it was fascinating. I remember really strongly I was going to school, going to college. Reagan was president. There was a movie that came out. It was broadcast. It was like one of the highest rated TV shows of all time. It was a made for TV movie about a nuclear holocaust, and everybody at college was sitting around watching it, and a friend of mine, I was talking to him, and he was like, I felt like he said that he felt like his parents had been lucky, that they had been getting their education and getting their start in the world before the nuclear holocaust was an option, and they had a future to look forward to. And he said he felt like there was really no tomorrow. Like everything he was doing was pointless because in the next 5 to 10 years, it's all going to come to an end. There's just too many ways for a nuclear holocaust to unfold. It was in Mad Max and before that Planet of the Apes and just it was such a staple of science fiction and just really suffusing our culture. If you go back and look at like music videos from like 1980 to 1985, it's like every third music video is set against the backdrop of nuclear war and bombs falling, and it was just a it was that was a moment where I was like, am I being programmed to expect the end? Is there no way that we're going to get out of this? And it turned out so far.
So did
we've
it feel
avoided it.
serious though? That it because if you're talking about it being in music videos, that kind of feels light, and like people are like, well, this is kind of part of life, but maybe not really a thing. Did it feel like at any point that could be a thing, that the world may truly end, or was it just something like a tickle in the back of your head?
So it was part of it was like, yeah, sure, yeah, sure, it's probably you get kind of numb to it, and so it did feel kind of science fiction-y. I remember there was like some low-level conflicts going on. Russia had invaded Afghanistan, and Reagan was talking about the Star Wars, putting space lasers and stuff up, and so there was like always this fear of, things are going to escalate. We're just going to keep building more and more powerful weapons, and all you need is one slip up, and it was among college age kids, it was just assumed that Reagan was just a maniac. He was old and doddering, and he would make jokes about he was playing around in the studio one day before recording, and he says, well, my fellow Americans, I just want to announce that we've declared war on Russia, and the missiles are flying, and I'm not quoting it directly, but he made a joke,
But
and
yikes.
it was like a huge scandal that he had done this, and a lot of us were just like, oh yeah, no, this could really be the end. There were also like close calls. You would hear about, the we were put on a red alert. Went into because a flock of geese. In Canada, triggered some early radar warning.
Sure, it wasn't a flock of seagulls.
Yeah, yeah, flock of seagulls. Yeah. So definitely, it felt distant, but it also felt very plausible that this was going to be the way the world ended. And then the Soviet Union fell apart,
Yay.
and it turned out that we had the whole decade, most of the decade of the 90s and the early 2000s, even with terrorism and stuff became an issue, but that sense that there's enough nuclear power material out there, enough nuclear missiles out there to destroy us all, kind of faded away from the foreground. Russia got rid of a lot of warheads. We got rid of a lot of warheads. We stopped testing bombs every 3 weeks. We have blown up very, very few atolls in the Pacific in recent years. France kind of gave up on their nuclear testing, and so it just kind of faded away. It's I think if if you talk to people today, to young people today, and ask them what they're afraid of, it's climate change
Right.
more than nuclear war. And I can, I'm not one to judge people for feeling their fears. The world programs you to fear certain things.
Right.
Every generation has its way of ending, that the world is going to end. And I mentioned, I grew up in a very religious household. I left that behind many years ago, but there was I grew up in a crowd of people who were like eagerly awaiting the end of the world. It wasn't that, oh no, the world is about to end. They're like, oh yes,
Yes.
the world is about to end.
Right, right. And I think that's common. So I've been talking to some people about the end of the world, which is a super uplifting conversation to have. But as I've been preparing for this, and rapture didn't actually come up as often as I kind of would have thought that it might. Because I was asking people, so how do you think the world ends? How do you think the world ends? And we're in the South, and
Yeah.
but I think I only got rapture one time, and even then it was kind of what? Oh, I can't even think how she said it. But rapture, and obviously lots of jokes about zombies. You reference very briefly zombies
Yeah.
in the book. So in the book, guys, basically James goes in and he pulls out 13 specific ways that the world might end, which he narrowed down from a list of like 30. Hey, and I was really pleased to find the list at the back of the book. I won't even lie. Like, as I got to the end, I was like, I wonder what the other ones were.
Yeah,
Like, he
did
didn't
you-
talk about this, and he didn't talk about, and then I got to the end, I was like, oh, it was on the list, though. So he talks about 13 different specific ways the world might end. And in each part of this, each chapter, each doom is a chapter, basically. He kind of goes through what might happen, and then he asks the questions: should you panic, and will this kill you? And then he kind of answers that. Will this decimate us? Could this send us back to the Stone Ages? Will this lead to extinction? And is there hope? Which I think was a really fun way to do. You did something similar in the Cryptids book, and I think that's a really fun way to kind of bring each chapter back in. But I'm not going to tell everybody what all of the dooms are that you have gone over, because this is a book that they should purchase and enjoy. And I haven't looked yet. Is this one available as an ebook on Amazon or anything?
It's available as an ebook, not yet on audio. You can get it in hardcover or paperback, and it's sold out at the very first event I had it at. So I was very pleased.
Hey,
with,
congratulations! That's
with
exciting.
that. The orange cover. So I was doing an outdoor festival when I debuted it back in November, and we have a red tent, and inside that red tent, this was like neon orange. I mean, it just looked like I'd printed it with a fluorescent ink.
Oh, that's neat.
So it was
Very
really
eye-catching.
just like, it was just, yeah, everybody like grabbing it. So yeah, it turns out there are a lot of people who want to read about the apocalypse.
Well, yeah, I can imagine. It's something to be fascinated with. And, Barrett wants me to say that he does audiobooks voices.
Okay.
So his little shameless plug back there where you can't see him. But anyhow, so one of the things, and I don't want to get into it too much because I don't have an overly political podcast, but, you were talking about Reagan a little bit ago, and throughout this, you kind of talk about how the different dooms, the ones that are not necessarily natural, really come down potentially to how people are being led and who's in charge of making decisions and
Yes.
how we're
Yeah.
doing things. Um, and I would say there's a fair amount of them that kind of boiled down to that. Like, if somebody smart makes good decisions, then we can probably avoid this doom altogether.
Yeah, another word for screwed. Just however, no. One of the things that I return to again in the book is that humans have this wonderful track record of beating back the apocalypse. So if you look at the classic horsemen of the apocalypse, we've really mostly defeated famine. Famine is now much more a political act than it is the fact that we can't grow enough calories. In any advanced nation with a stable government, they can grow more food than we
Right,
actually
right.
need. And then disease, plague. We've really done a pretty masterful job of getting rid of things like smallpox and polio. And as dramatic as much as COVID, really seemed to like shake the world and turn it upside down. It didn't kill anywhere near. It was. It's a rounding error. As far as
Right.
I mean, every death is tragic, but it's. It wasn't the Black Plague. It wasn't the Black Death or smallpox. It was it was unfortunate, but it was not an
Right.
extinction ender or a civilization ender. So we. I don't think that there's. I don't think that. I mean, all we need is one thing where I'm wrong, but we just understand enough about how germs spread. That we can take things, we can do things to mitigate it. So much of disease was spread by bad water, and in places that have a halfway stable political system, people can have clean water. So that's really well. And then even war, if you look back at the previous centuries, just the conflicts between major nations going on, World War One, World War Two, where tens of millions of people are dying every year,
Right.
and there's still so many wars going on, but far fewer people die today from armed conflicts than once we once did. I mean, it was World War One. The number of 18 and 19-year-old European males that just got thrown into a grinder and just erased a huge part of that population. The same thing happened in World War II, and then with World War II, we started introducing the practice of, well, we're just going to erase this entire city.
Right.
Nuclear, Hiroshima and Nagasaki are obvious, but even without that, with conventional weapons, we would take a town like Dresden and just leave nothing standing. And there's not to be political, there's still conflicts where that sort of thing happens, but it's definitely not the scale or the scope that it once was, and it's because we have built institutions. As much as you might laugh at how ineffective something like the United Nations might be, we do tend to be able to talk our way out of conflicts.
Right.
And the major reason that we have fewer conflicts is capitalism.
We got to work together.
It pays. You can. It's much easier to buy and sell and trade with your potential enemies and influence them economically. It's just expensive to go out and conquer territory, because then you're you're fighting the resistance for decades. The quicker way to monetize it is just to go in and buy what you want, bribe,
Right.
and it's created for the most part a more peaceful world. So we've really beaten three of the four horsemen, and in doing so we create new problems. So by eliminating the kind of mass death and the mass disease and the mass hunger that we were plagued with until as recently as like 60, 70 years ago, we have quadrupled the world's population in a
Right.
very short period of time, and that's put a lot of strain on a lot of ecosystems. It's created, even though we might not have the same level of war, it has created, political turmoil, and so there's, a lot of the dooms that we might face are the results of us beating back some other doom, and it opens the
Right,
door
because
to
there's just
something
so
new.
many of, and that was a theme throughout it, the overpopulation. So,
Yeah.
spoiler, one of them is overpopulation. But you talked about the overpopulation, but then in other chapters, it comes back to that. So, because we have so many more people, we are making more trash. Not to give another spoiler, but so and these kinds of things feed on each other. You talked about natural stupidity, which gave me a good little giggle there.
I will the one chapter is dealing with artificial intelligence, so I have to follow with the chapter on natural stupidity.
Oh my God, it is. I don't think I even noticed that it went in that direction. Yeah, no, that's brilliant. And the artificial intelligence, I get teased all the time. So, do I think that robots are going to take over the world? No, I probably don't. But if they do, I am super polite to my Google all day, every day, so that when it comes time, she's like, not her. You can spare her because she said thank you and called me ma'am. And we've got Google, like I'm very big on the automated stuff. So I've got a Google in every room, and she's doing all kinds of things for me and controlling my lights and controlling the temperature and telling me random facts that I need to know when I'm in the shower.
Yeah.
But I don't know, part of me, I've got a preoccupation with robots and androids and all of that, and I find it incredibly fascinating. And I don't, and Barrett and I have discussed this before, I don't love AI. Like, I love aspects of it, and you actually talked about it really eloquently in your chapter. Like, I've got this fear of AI taking the creative jobs, taking away, which obviously you addressed as a creative, but taking away the things that bring passion to people. And then we've got a robot doing it. And what are we doing? It would be different if, and now I'm going to get on soapbox, it'd be different if we were, AI advanced to a point that we were allowed to then pursue our passions in any way, but the world is still the world. Capitalism is still capitalism. We still have to make money. We still have to report to the man. That's all still a thing. And so I've got very mixed feelings about AI.
Well, so I do think that AI is likely to put some people out of work. That's definitely the case, and it can make life very difficult for authors or artists. That said, life is already really difficult for our authors and artists. It wasn't like it was some walk in the park before, and the attributes that go into becoming a successful writer or a successful illustrator aren't really the raw talent or producing the product. A lot of it is being able to make connections and just having those personal experiences. So like I can connect with people over my background and my personal experience with nuclear holocaust and with people ready for the rapture, and AI can just can't make these connections, and so
Right.
it's a good imitative system, but it's got there it won't ever really. I don't think it will ever truly be a threat for the creative types, because it can't do the, even though it's running on a network, it can't really do the networking.
Right. The
Yeah.
irony of it. You could be on a network, but you cannot network.
Yeah.
And you actually talked about, and it hadn't occurred to me, and maybe that's just because I live under a rock. But in that same chapter, you talked about how really the people who potentially there's concern for are your surgeons and your
Yeah.
people who have these very highly skilled jobs that honestly a robot potentially can do better, more
Yes.
efficiently.
Yeah. So my wife just had her whole foot rebuilt. So, and right now it's just this Frankenstein monster foot with stitches and
We're going to clip this out and send it to her for Valentine's Day.
uh, uh, it's a mess. But and it was a 5 hour surgery. The doctors were in there with the X-rays and stuff for 5 hours, and the surgeon did a wonderful job. It was wonderful that they did this. But I can 100% see how an AI powered robot, consulting with a human, could probably do the very same surgery, and it's probably, if I'm in my 60s, and it's quite possible before I leave this planet that robot surgeons will become the standard, because they they're it's still a learning curve, but as they
Right.
perfect, they don't get fatigued. They don't have. I, all right, so I don't want to spoil too much here about but I don't want to complain about my wife's care, because it's excellent care. But uh, today there was someone who came, and they were that she was back for a follow-up exam, and they unwrapped her foot, and they were they rebandaged it, and well, actually, before they rebandaged it, they already removed all the wrapping and examined it, and they were like, "All right, we gotta go get the X-ray ready," and we were sitting there for like 6 minutes, and the nurse popped her head back in, and she was like, "All right, just double checking. It's your right foot, right?" And she said, "Yeah, I just had to tell the technician which foot." And it's like, so she is distracted and busy enough that she just spent 10 minutes working on her right foot, doing an excellent job. And
Right.
yet, because she's got other things to do and other things in her mind, she had forgotten whether it was the right or the left foot. She probably probably deals with, a dozen patients a day where
Sure.
she's dealing with this, and it's all different. But I felt very connected to her, because that is totally me.
You're like, I don't know which
Or
foot it was, but
yeah, no, I all the time, the some things I will have in my hand 2 minutes earlier, I will completely forget about, in the course of talking. The number of times I'll sign a book for someone at a convention, and then set the book down, or I'll put it into a plastic bag, and I'll be talking with them about something, and I'll be like, "Well, have a good day," and they'll be like, "Going to give me my book?"
nope, I'm keeping that. It's how I make money.
So yeah, getting, machines won't do that,
Right.
and so yeah, I think that I think there's going to be a learning curve. I mean, it's not. I wouldn't. Today, I would be very nervous about getting into a robo taxi. I definitely wouldn't want a robo surgeon working on me today,
Right.
but I see no real barriers to this tech becoming prominent. And I will guarantee you that the companies will make way, way, way more money by doing robotic surgeries than they ever will from writing from having their robots write a comic book or
110%.
yeah. So the money's not in the arts,
Right.
So I wouldn't be too worried. The arts you do for love, and the AIs just can't feel that love.
So speaking of the arts you do for love, you said earlier that you read a lot of post-apocalyptic books, and that's kind of, when you were getting to the write what you know stuff.
Yeah.
Where were your influences? What were the big ones?
Oh my God! So I mentioned the church. So the church was a big one, but I was probably 10, maybe 11 when I saw the Planet of the Apes on TV, and they get to the end and they pull back, and it's the Statue of Liberty, and he's like, "Oh, you blew it up, you maniacs," and that was like, oh wow, that is really, that has stayed with me a long time. That was one of the first, big, big moments, as a child, where I'm like, oh, this is how it's going to be in the future. This is, we're really going to be doomed because of the technology that we've built. So definitely Planet of the Apes was a big driver for me. I'm trying to think of a book series that I was reading when I was young, but I really wasn't. I wasn't reading a lot of post-apocalyptic.
But you write
stuff.
post-apocalyptic.
I write
God,
post-apocalyptic now, yeah, but I didn't. But it was I kind of grew out of it. I didn't have a strong influence that led me into this. It was, I write post-apocalyptic. My Bitterwood series is set in a post-apocalyptic America, but it grew out of playing D&D in just a traditional D&D setting, and me thinking, what would it take to turn our world into a D&D world? And so I was working from, all right, instead of a fantasy reality, what would take our reality into something like a D&D setting? And so I started with the end of the world, wiping away what we had and replacing it with nanotech as magic, and the dragons genetically engineered.
What ended the world in your series? What was the doom?
So it was a multitude of things. So part of it was climate change. Big part of it was economic collapse. The economy had just gotten very unequal. There was a lot of grifting stuff going on. It was a kind of a house of cards. If any of this sounds like I'm commenting on today's politics, keep in mind I was writing this. I started writing this in the 90s.
So you're predicting the future like The Simpsons, huh?
I predicted in that series that there would be a worldwide pandemic in 1918, or 2018. So I was a couple of years off.
Oh wow!
And that pandemic, killed a lot more people than the one that actually came around. But yeah, so I just kind of came at it just through pure imagination, and with the as much influenced by those music videos I'm talking about.
Is there one that sticks out in your head? One of these music videos? I've got to look it up.
1999, Prince. It's like party's over. That's what it's like this bumpy upbeat, pumping up beat song, but it's it is about, well, let's party tonight because the world ends tomorrow, and then going back again to the earlier, the Smiths asked me, if it's not love, it's the bomb that will bring us together, is the chorus. And so good, again, very cultural. Also comic books at that time wasn't really post-apocalyptic, but very dystopian. So you had Watchmen and
Okay.
Dark Knight Returns, all just showing the world going increasingly to hell. And so I kind of grew up, had this very dour attitude. But the best way to stop feeling bad about the future is to read a lot about the past and realize that we have made a tremendous amount of progress. For we can sit here and we can talk about all the problems in the world, but we just kind of routinely leave certain things behind, certain problems behind, and it's just, I don't think people today understand how horrible cars were in fairly recent decades. The cars I was driving in the 1980s were just death traps. No airbags,
Sure.
no anti-lock brakes. Headlights. I just don't even know. I mean, the before halogen headlights. You were driving at 80 miles an hour, able to see like 50 feet in front of you.
Just hoping for the best.
Yeah, just hoping for the best. And so yeah, it was. Today, my car will chirp if I go out of a lane, or if there's a car in my blind spot, it has a little warning for that. Just all these little elements
Keep
of
you
my
alive
car
things.
working hard to keep me alive and safe. And there's variations from year to year, but we have seriously cut into the number of traffic fatalities. If there is any trend, it's because more people are driving than ever.
Sure.
We're driving more miles, but as far as being able to drive 200 or 300 miles between any kind of incident in your car, I mean, for me, being able to drive 5,000 miles without having to change some major part of my car is really kind of
Right. You're like, I just need to keep going. Well, and you go all over for the different conventions and things for your
I
book.
drove 17,000 miles last year going to shows.
That's a lot of miles.
Yeah.
So mostly the things that you do talk about in the book are of our own devices. Mostly they're things that potentially we bring upon ourselves. There are a couple of things, though, that you mentioned that may just be inevitable, maybe the world, and we may have zero say in it.
Yep. So there's the old doomsday comet.
Yep.
It is probably the most certain threat, as far as it is a matter of time. It's every year the planet is rolling dice. So far we're not rolling zeros, but eventually, on a scale of thousands of years, there's another one of these doomsday comets heading towards us. The big one that wiped out dinosaurs, plenty of things survived. If alligators made it through, maybe we can make it through a doomsday comet, but
or the
probably
lizard man
not.
can.
Yeah. However, that is one where 50 years ago, if we had heard a doomsday comet heading towards us, we'd be completely helpless. Today, we have, a good shot of spotting that doomsday comet 40, 50, 100 years before it's going to hit. And in another, by 20, 30 years from now, we will probably have all the tools that we need to deflect an asteroid before it came to us. So we got lucky that nothing slammed into us
Sure.
in this era where we were becoming civilized enough to deal with this threat. But again, that's one of the cases where I mentioned, assuming that the people who are running the world are smart enough to invest money into into space research and into the rocket programs, and so
About
there's
that.
fingers. Yeah. I say this as we have two astronauts trapped up in space that
They
have been
live
up
there
there.
now. It's fine. It's fine.
No idea how long they've been up there, but it's a ridiculously long time. And if it's kind of like we can't get a rocket up to in very near Earth orbit, to retrieve two astronauts, doesn't make you feel good about our odds against mounting an expedition to an oncoming comet.
Well, and Bruce Willis is out of commission for it.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
but I will say, despite this book being called 13 Dooms, and Doom being there in the title, it's a very optimistic and hopeful book.
Well, thank you. Except for I do get to the, it's optimistic, but it's also, I try to remind people whenever possible that mortality is baked into the cake.
Right.
Entropy is just part of the design of the universe.
Right.
In the end, there's no escape. The opening of the book, says, imagine a world where 95% of humanity has already died. And then it's like, you don't need to imagine it. That's our world,
Right.
well more than 99 out of every human that's ever been born has already passed away. Most of them, we don't know their names. We have no idea where they're buried. They are gone and forgotten. Entire civilizations have vanished from the earth.
The alphabet thing, I thought, was a really poignant comment to make in it about the guy who wrote the alphabet can't even be remembered.
No, the guy. So you would think that being the inventor of the alphabet would
Someone
make you
would write
famous.
down
You're
your
the
name.
first person who could have had your name written down, and yet it didn't happen. So the world is full of people who invent wondrous and marvelous things that enter our lives, and we couldn't have a civilization without them, and then they're forgotten. And then there's just a few glory hogs who come along and like, I'm Thomas Edison, or
me.
me. Yeah, and so it's I'm not saying that that the famous inventors and famous scientists aren't important, but someday. In the previous century, someone was driving down a dark country road and thought, we'd be a lot safer if we painted bright lines down the middle of the road.
Right. Who is that guy? Because I'm a fan, and I don't like whoever invented the other ones where I can't see the lanes.
So I've already forgotten his name, but it turned out my wife is always teasing me about the boring stuff I listen to. And so I was listening to an audiobook about infrastructure. I was just out on the deck sorting buttons, prepping for my next con. And one of the things that I've always used is that example of, the world has all these heroes that we don't know their names of. No one knows the name of whoever decided to first paint those lines down the middle of the highway. And I'm listening to my book on infrastructure, and she walks out just as they're like, in 1923, British engineer, decided he would paint yellow lines down the highway. And I'm like, oh, wait, they do know his name. And I have promptly forgotten it.
Oh, you see, and I'm going to Google it later and watch. There's going to be an episode of Welcome to Wonderland at some point where all I'm going to do is go through and look up people who made these inventions that we take for granted for. It's going to be a whole episode on it.
I think of the name of that infrastructure book. It was really fascinating, just talking about all the little engineering decisions that go into our built environment, why stoplights have the intervals they do, why certain signs are this color and this font, and just all these little details that people are out there obsessively thinking about and working to make the world safer and more usable. And as long as these people are out there, they don't get the glory, but they are making the world a much more pleasant place to live than probably any previous era.
Right.
I'm not someone who glorifies the past that much. I'm old enough to remember the past, and
Oh, you're not. But okay, well, so this is the book, 13 Dooms, My Wonderlings. Here it is.
yes.
Oops, sorry, I hit the mic. Like last time, I'll do a giveaway for people who interact with this episode and share it and all of that, so that we'll give away an e-copy of 13 Dooms. It is so much fun, though. Truly, if you guys are at a convention and you run into James, pick it up, order it online. It looks like it is $15. Is that right? 15?
15, yeah, 25
Yeah.
for the hardcover.
Yeah. So-
Ebook is $3.99, $4.99.
$3.99. See there?
Not crazy. Yeah.
But it's an incredibly fun read, and the 13 Dooms, and we went over a fair amount of them. There's some spoilers, but you still have to read it. It's very funny.
Yeah.
The footnotes in it are hilarious.
I wanted to mention the footnotes. If you read the ebook, you have to click on the footnotes to get to the footnotes, unlike the book where they're down at the foot. And so don't skip the footnotes.
Don't skip the footnotes. There's a bunch of them. Like they're not for an appendix at the back. they are for wit and humor only. But it's incredibly entertaining. And then the additional dooms at the end, he does give us the full list of 30. Including some of the popular ones like the Rapture and black holes. And honestly, this pole reversal. So I hadn't heard about this. And then one of the people that I was talking to about the apocalypse was like, well, the poles might reverse. And I was like, excuse me?
Yeah.
So
that one was one of these esoteric ones where, we know that the poles flip from time to time. But it doesn't seem to be correlated with mass extinctions. But we've never had a species realize as much on electronic devices and
so it'd be the fallout from it.
Do. So yeah, the fallout from it. Biologically, we would probably not notice anything at all, but definitely, definitely could lead to a very unpleasant aftermath. And it's one of those things where, it'll happen.
So do you enjoy, obviously post-apocalyptic cinema and television has become very popular. Do you enjoy those types of shows also? Last of Us, Fallout, Twisted Metal, any of those kinds of things?
So, I yes and no. I've hit an era. I mentioned I'm over 60, and so I don't watch as much of the TV drama type stuff as I once did. I'm kind of embarrassed to admit this, but I watch a lot of just like reality TV.
Are we talking like Big Brother or like America's Next Top Model?
Oh no, neither of those. More like Josh Gates, Expedition Unknown, and
gotcha.
There's a show called Alone where people get put out in the wilderness by themselves, and how long can they last, and so that's kind of become my guilty pleasure. And then the one exception to it is I love adult animation, so Rick and Morty, Has-Been Hotel, Futurama, I still watch The Simpsons and Bob's Burgers. So if it's not hand drawn, I'm either people have to be suffering in real life or it needs to be hand drawn.
Look, there are two things. This is it.
Yeah, that's it. That's where I'm at.
You either are naked and hungry and afraid, or you are a cartoon.
Yeah, I will probably watch for the next movie I will watch this year. I'll probably see the Superman movie, and that's probably the only movie I've got on the horizon. Maybe the Fantastic Four. that I'll probably watch.
All that time you spend at comic conventions, huh? And it doesn't rub off.
Well, I just part of it is I travel so much. I did 27 shows last year, so I'm never home on the weekends. I'm constantly out, and so I just it kind of got me out of the habit of going. Well,
Sure.
COVID knocked me out of theaters. I used to go to movies, and then
Right.
COVID knocked that out, and it turns out that the streaming era, uh, once I know that I could just watch a movie anytime,
Yeah.
it removes that sense of
There's no
urgency.
urgency for it.
Yeah, well, the same thing happened with comic books. I used to go to the comic book shop every week and be there on Wednesday and get my new releases and read it all, and then everything became collected into graphic novel editions and omnibus editions, and so I didn't have to go looking for back issues. And it got to a point where I'm buying these graphic novels, but I'm not reading them, because I haven't, there was, back in the 80s, I might find, like a 12 issue miniseries and have,
Right.
issues 1 through 12, except for issue 9. And I would search through, drive from city to city, searching through comic book shops, looking for that back issue 9. And the second I found it, I would pay any price for it and go sit in my car and read that book. And that the instantaneous nature of gratification today, removes
Sure.
that thrill of the hunt.
I get it. I get it.
I
Well,
didn't include boredom as one of the dooms we face, but it may
no,
be.
no, because I feel like that's the one I face every single day. I'm going to, no, and so I guess we're
Yeah.
we're getting close here, so we'll start closing up. But guys, I truly cannot say enough about this book. I genuinely really enjoyed it. It's such a quick read. It's only it was about 150 pages. It's about 150 pages, and it reads so easily. Like there's nothing tedious about it. It's very quick-witted, and it's got a fun balance of the things you think, and then there's factual information, and I learned some new things in here, which is always fun for me. That's obviously Welcome to Wonderland. That's something I do, is I love to learn things. So it's a wonderful, wonderful book. And what's the next show you're going to be at? What did you have coming up?
I will be all right. Hold your horses. My next show is in Wilmington the first weekend of March.
Oh, we'll be there,
So
right?
the
We'll be there.
Coastal Comic Con.
Coastal Comic Con. We'll be there.
Okay,
Yeah.
But March is crazy for me because then I turn around and go to the Indianapolis Comic Con, which is a 4-day show. Then I go to Steel City Con in Pittsburgh. Oh no, I'm taking that. I'm wrong. I'm going to the Lexington Comic Con. Then I'm going to the Indianapolis Comic Con. Then I'm doing the Richmond Galaxy Con, and then I'm doing Steel City in Pittsburgh.
Jeez Louise.
Yeah, no, yeah. So that's how I put the 17,000 miles on my car.
Well, good news, Wonderlings. No matter where you're at in the United States, you get to go see James soon if you want to.
I am stalking America. I'm watching you, America.
Is
I'm in
that
your
on
backyard.
here? James drives around and stalks America. Oh, yeah, it's number 29. But it has been such a pleasure. I really enjoy talking to you. And are we working on anything new? I know you just put this out, but
Yeah, my next is a fiction book. I'm releasing it under a pen name. XJ May is going to be it's called Angels of Sodom. And it's I mentioned having a biblical background, and I just encountered the beginning of the story of Sodom and Gomorrah, which starts 2 angels came to Sodom in the evening, and I instantly was like, hey, do those 2 angels have a backstory? What's their story?
okay.
And so this is the story of these 2 angels. And since they are spending the evening in Sodom disguised as humans, they wind up having quite a few naughty adventures. I don't want anyone who reads one of my kid-friendly books to like Google me and immediately
So that's why
download
the
this,
extra.
thinking they're getting some Bible lesson.
Oh no! They're like, "Hey, look at this! Look what he." Oh, oh, oh.
I'm very excited about it. It's a very it's a very literary book. It's standalone, and I like my standalone projects, and I think people will enjoy it, and all the sex and violence that is in it is there purely for literary merit. It is.
Oh, I love it when sex and violence is there just for my own fun. um, you'll have to. I'll have to get an email because I won't remember after this. I'm like the lady with the Frankenstein foot. I don't know which foot it was, but I'll have to get an email so you can tell me what name to look it up under, because I do quite enjoy sex and violence in a novel. So.
Yeah, this is the raunchiest thing I've written.
And I do love Ranch. Okay. So I'll have to check it out when it comes out. You said when?
I don't yet have the release date. I'm currently working on the second draft. I've already got a cover on my X. If you follow me on X, I've been posting excerpts on X.
I basically never get on X, but I'll have to look it up.
Yeah, and I've got the cover every time I post an excerpt as I'm writing in the second draft. So I probably will have it out by the summer. I run my own publishing house, and right now my intention is to release it on my own, but it's also so good that part of me is thinking, I wonder if I should contact my old agent and see if see if this would be something that a wider publishing deal might make sense on. But then part of me is also like, just get it out this summer and start selling it, and don't put it through the publishing grind where I write it and then wait 5 years before anyone can read it.
I don't think I would have the patience for that.
Yeah, no, I don't either. That's why I'm indie published now instead.
So is Word Balloon Books you then?
Yeah, Word Balloon Books is me. I published myself, and then I do anthologies where I collect stories from other authors. But yeah, I had a traditional publishing career I put out about 8 or 9 books through traditional publishing, but I got lucky enough that two of my early books the publishers hadn't bought ebook rights to, because I started publishing before ebooks were really a thing, and so I released my back catalog then as ebooks around 2010, and they were suddenly paying my mortgage. And
Very
by
nice.
2015, I was just like, I'd already written, a sequel to one of these books that went straight to Amazon without even shopping it around to a publisher. And by 2015, I'm like, yeah, no, this is the way to go. So I've been indie ever since.
Awesome. I didn't realize that.
Yeah, no, however, the world has changed, and so I think that Barnes and Noble, I just was reading, is adding news stores this year for like the first time in over a decade. In 2015, whenever I left behind traditional publishing, I was like, there won't be a Barnes and Noble.
You're like, bookstores are dead.
Yeah, bookstores are dead, and then they didn't die, and so so if I had a little more foresight, then perhaps I wouldn't have jumped ship so quickly. But I really don't regret it. I like being able to just write whatever I want. Having to shop this book around to a traditional publisher would have been a hassle. Instead, I decided last year, hey, I want to write a book about doomsday, and I less than a year passed between me typing the first words of it and me selling it to the first customer. So
Oh,
that's just not possible in traditional publishing.
that that's very cool.
Yeah.
I didn't realize that. So I learned something new. Well, we will have to have another conversation again at some point. I
Okay.
do quite enjoy this. Um, but guys, so here and actually now that I know that you'll be at Wilmington and we'll be at Wilmington, I don't think I'm going to do an e-copy. I think I'm going to do a physical copy of your book and get you to sign it as the giveaway.
Oh,
So I'm going to
excellent.
come buy one of your books down at the, I assume down, I don't know, wherever the vendors are, and then we will get it signed and give away a copy of an act because they can't have mine. My husband actually wants to read it, so he's like, "Can I read this?" I was like, "Not yet. I still need it." Um, but we'll give away a copy, a signed copy of this book to a listener. Um, and you guys are going to enjoy it. Again, James, you've been wonderful. I truly have appreciated having you on the show. Anything else you want to say to everybody?
No, that is fine. I mentioned that I'm on Twitter. I'm James Allen Maxey on X. If you want to find me there, that's the social media platform I'm most active on. I have a thing called Dragon's Gate on Facebook, but I always forget to post there. So
Social media
so
is hard.
so social media is hard, and the I sell books by going out and meeting people in real life,
Right.
and giving to them. The social media feeds are mainly where I will just dispense random bits of writing advice, and I use it to post excerpts as I'm writing, and it kind of gives me a little motivation to, like, all right, I got to get this chapter done today so I can post something on on X.
I'm gonna have to look at it. I know I follow you on X, but I don't ever get on there, so I'm gonna have to get on and look at it.
Yep.
But well, thank you, James. You have a wonderful night, and I'm guessing Barrett, we need to hang tight, or
How do you mean?
I mean, are we good?
Yeah.
Can I sign off, or you need me to
Can-
hang on while you say the episode or something?
That's up to you. I mean,
No, no, we're good here.
Okay.
I will do some pre and post. Like I'll still do editing to put in the intros and everything. But
All right. Well, I will let you go. And
Sorry, I was confused as to what she was asking me. There wasn't a lot of detail, so I was like, "Yeah, no, we're good. He's at 99%." So,
he can't read my mind.
I'll go if you're good at me, then I'll go ahead and stop the recording.